Well, good morning. Welcome to another little video. I had an inquiry from somebody asking me, how do you even get started? We were looking at the idea of what I was presenting and from what point in their own conscious awareness and connection with the material that they were able to actually comprehend what I was saying. And I remember when I very first came into contact with my early teachers, it was very difficult to hear what they were actually saying. It seemed as if everybody else in the room at that meditation place seemed to be all nodding and yep, we all get it and whatever. And I'm sitting there looking around going, I've got no clue what this guy's talking about. So I wanted to do the nuts and bolts of spirituality based on two premises. One is that there is nothing outside of my mind. A thought does not leave its source, which is where you think it. And two, time is not sequential. Everything's happening now. I'll do time is not sequential first. I know I've made this video before, actually. It seems like just recently. But time is not sequential is quite easy. Everything's always now. There is no such thing as past. The past is always over and gone. It doesn't exist except as a memory of something. This leaf, for example, it exists only now. I'm holding it now, talking to you about it now, in this moment. This leaf exists only now. I'm talking to you about it now. It exists only in this moment. You might say it's the same leaf from a moment that I told you about it before, but that would not be true. One is a memory and one is the living experience of it now. I'll let you sit with that one and puzzle it out. On the other end of that same scale, the future doesn't exist. It never comes. Tomorrow never arrives. And you could say, well, I'm going to go to bed tonight and I'll wake up and it'll be tomorrow. No, you'll wake up and it'll be now. It'll be the moment that you wake up. It won't be a tomorrow. Time is not sequential, and you can only ever experience yourself in this present moment, which is where love is and the whole purpose of our reconnective endeavors through the spiritual arts. The other one, that thoughts don't leave their source, an idea leaves not the mind, is a little more requiring of explanation. And again, all of these things that I'm telling you, they're going to be concurrent with your ability to hear them and integrate them. And if you're scratching your head already and wondering about things, don't be concerned. Simply take on board what's being said, and you'll find that at some point in your own maturation, in your own journey, it'll drop in. You'll be like, that's what Dave was talking about, blah, 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 blah. Right? Back in the past. The past of now. No, and here's another way to look at that, actually. Here's another really good way. So the idea of now is the idea of the present moment, which is ever with you. It's never not the present moment. If you imagine time as a tube, a tunnel, and everything going from the beginning of time, let's just start our timeline at cavemen and women, we have to be inclusive, cave people, and going up to whatever our transformative evolutionary thing is going to do, let's say aliens. We transform into these kind of beheaded things. Who knows? If you were to take that timeline and turn it on its end like a tube and look through it, you would be able to see all of that happening at once. All of that is happening now, right? Now that's how it actually is. Just because our mind tells us, no, there's a yesterday, and I remember that from yesterday and whatever, it doesn't mean that that's true, or that there's going to be a tomorrow. It doesn't mean that that's true. It just means that's the belief system you have regarding how it is your mind fabricates and allocates meaning and locational interpretation to justify your temporal association, your body form, right, your avatar. But that doesn't mean that's actually what's going on. 50 million Frenchmen can be wrong. So the other one, an idea leaves not its source, or an idea always stays in the mind where it is very simply accomplished by doing this, putting your finger on your own nose. What I see out there, okay, what I see out in the field of dreams, this is a dream. What I see out there in my field of the dream is a symbolic representation of my own thoughts about it. I wouldn't know what it is that I'm seeing out there unless it was my own thoughts telling me. Can you see that? Right? If I had this leaf, I wouldn't know what this leaf was except for my own thoughts about it. I wouldn't know if I could snap it in half, except for my own thoughts tell me that I can do that. Right? Things that I've learned in the past, all these sorts of ideas of the past, which in our spiritual pursuit is exactly what it is that we're going to be letting go of, so that our preconceived notions about leaves or the universe can, let's say, become interrupted for a moment and allow something other than our beliefs and thoughts about these things to occur in our mind to show us what reality and truth actually is. So as I walk the world, I'm beset by situations, events, people, and all these sorts of things, all of which have potential contained within them in the nature of my interaction with them. And it's almost impossible that you can't interact. It makes no sense to go and sit in a cave for 50 years and meditate. It's much better to just get on and interact with the images of your dreaming. It's a dream. And allow those buttons and triggers to be pushed and pulled, and allow your emotional self to be thrown into that sort of turmoil and chaotic experience that we call humanity. Okay? Now, without a spiritual perspective, without a spiritual bearing, I'm just going to move this a little. Without a spiritual bearing, you have no clue how to use the images. You have no clue what to do with the triggers and the buttons that get pushed and pulled. And so you come into contact with a spiritual discipline, let's say like the Gitas or you know, the Vedantic texts, or the Bible, or A Course in Miracles, which is the one I always recommend, or any of the Buddhist teachings. And you begin to look at these things, and they begin to offer you a different way through which to perceive and interact with your world, that can help you to maintain a sense of self, a sense of inner peace within what seems to be often a very chaotic experience of humanity. And as you progress further and further in your chosen discipline or chosen practice, maybe you're just born enlightened, I don't know. It's possible, apparently. I don't know why that would be so, but anyway. I just got the answer to that. But where was I at? But as you go through the application of the particular principles and things that you're looking at and applying them and trying them and investigating and experimenting with, and it's all a great experiment, like you just throw yourself in there and just see what happens, because you get the results of your own thinking, and that's how you learn. Right, so you're applying these principles of forgiveness to situations that seem to upset you, and tolerance and patience for things that seem to be out of your control, and this whole letting go. Right, I'm just going to let it all go. I'm just going to let it all go. It's like jumping in a river and allowing the flow of the river to carry you, rather than you standing there on the bank going, I don't want the river to go that way. I want it to go that way, you know, and try to control your own destiny, which is pointless, because at the end of your journey, there's just a pine box in a 6-foot hole for this carcass that you think you are, or that I think I am, finger on the nose, that I think I am, which is simply only the vessel for learning. It's not what I am. It's not what you are. And any spiritual discipline will bring you to some sort of conclusions regarding that, and hopefully give you an experience to show you that you're not this vessel, you're not the body, you are in fact the spirit. Right? So the situations and events outside of my mind, the things that I see around me, because you're watching my video, I'm going to tell you are easily served, are easily reconciled, perhaps is a better word, easily reconciled spiritually through the use of a little practice called the mirror, right, which is an Eastern practice. And you could call it shadow work, it's much the same sort of thing. But I have a family of Currawongs that can't quite hear. Anyway, but the idea of the mirror comes from the East, from India, and Plato, one of the very earliest Greek philosophers, used the idea of the shadows in the cave representing the same sort of thing. But the way I'm going to express this to you is going to be incredibly helpful if you listen, if you can hear it and include it in to your repertoire of spiritual tools. And you'll find that you're able to identify a lot of your hidden triggers and hidden buttons and things that get pushed and pulled. Triggers and buttons, pushed and pulled, which of course always lead to a block. Right now, if you're using A Course in Miracles, you'll be aware that there are 4 blocks to the awareness of love's presence within you. One of those is the desire to get rid of it. Nobody ever wants to accept that. Right? I don't want to get rid of it. I want peace. I want love. It's like, no, you don't. That's the first one you've got to get past. And they're not particularly in sequence, in order. I mean, it may show up for you in however it shows up. The second one is the belief that the body's valuable for what it can offer. Look at my body, isn't it valuable? It gets me stuff, and I can do things with it, and pleasure and pain and all of these sorts of things. And pain's there. Don't think that I'm being crazy at you because I'm saying that people like to experience pain through the body. There are some people that make a whole identity and a way of living through the idea of pain, and love to tell you every little thing that happens to them that hurts them in the falsity of their experience. And then the third one is the fear of death, which is a pretty common fear, but you're not actually afraid of death. You actually love death. You love to be afraid of death, right? It's one of those things that keeps the belief of separation in play. It's a false foundation stone. And then, of course, the fourth one, the fear of love. And it's like the last thing anybody wants to do is love themselves unconditionally. And if you think I'm wrong about that, close your eyes and just ask yourself if you love yourself unconditionally, or if there are things that you think maybe, you know. And when I'm saying that the idea of loving yourself unconditionally, that also includes everyone and everything else within the world, right? Because we share a single self, and that is the self that we are afraid to love. The self that God created us as part of itself. So as you walk the world and you have your experience with your avatar and you're like, where am I? What's going on? Why is there all this stuff happening? You start to develop a way of being with yourself and a way of seeing things, and a way of what would you call it? Identifying yourself according to the things that you like and you don't like. And we try to seek out the things that we like more and more and avoid the things we don't like more and more also. But of course, then all that ends up happening through that defensive nature is that we only end up experiencing half of our human experience, and the rest gets pushed down into denial, gets pushed down into, well, I don't know what to do with these things that have happened to me, this trauma, this past, this history, this story, this whatever it is, and I don't know what to do with it. Time heals all wounds. I'll just push it away and pretend it never happened, or I'll go and talk to somebody about it. But it's still there, right? It's still there, niggling away, causing a cancer or a growth or a disease of some sort. because all energy that becomes impacted, and life is energy, all energy that becomes impacted and not liberated turns in on itself and metamorphoses into something that is in keeping with the design and the desire for its denial, which is destruction. Right? I don't know if you can hear that. It's very similar to the law of attraction. Well, it actually is the law of attraction in a certain sense. Right? But it's in reverse. Rather than getting something you want, you're getting something you want that you're going to tell yourself you don't want. Okay? I don't want to get too much into that at the moment, but so you have these experiences, and some things you enjoy and some things you don't. Right? That's the nature of the world. That's the nature of the experience of being separate from God. Where is God in all this craziness? And why doesn't God help people? And all of this sort of thing. Well, you have to look at the big picture. Well, do you know what God is? Or do you merely think that God is like some big man in the sky, or some creative entity that is waiting to swoop in and save you from things, and all of these sorts of, or cast a flood or a famine and all of this sort of thing? God is an energy. God is like the Force in Star Wars. What you use it for, and I know people will be a bit cringing at that. Oh, did he really say Star Wars? Don't like Star Wars. But it's the true thing. It's like a tachyon field of atoms and particles and everything like that. If you want to look at it in the very, very basic building blocks of matter, that can be affected by thought and made to become manifest as far as a symbolic representation of ideas in the mind that are attempting to seek out the potential in the idea of the belief in separation. Right? And the mind tries to seek out the potential again and again and again in different ways and different situations with different people and different events, looking for perfection. Can you hear that? The thing that you're looking for, the thing that you feel inside that is missing, is perfection. Right? And so in our Course in Miracles, in our spiritual teaching, what we're actually teaching is perfection over and over again until we learn it in everything. Everything's always perfect. And as you begin to see the perfection reflected in everything, beyond the form, beyond the imagery, because you've done the work of forgiving yourself for the false identity or the maintenance of the false identity that those things previously represented before you began a spiritual journey, you kind of enter into this maturity of self where you begin to realize that everything is a lesson or a blessing. Right? Everything's a lesson or a blessing. If it's not a blessing, learn the lesson. What you resist persists, and the lesson's going to come around again in another way, another shape, or another form to be presented, and push and pull those buttons and triggers, to show you that there's still blockage. Okay? And so to give you an opportunity to free you up in the limited time you have that your body is available to you, because everything in time and space is born of limitation, so that you can come to know what you are as part of God itself, right? As an expression of the divine. That's going to take a little bit of getting from here to here. But remember, we can turn the tube that way and start to see it now, that I am perfect, I am whole, I am as God created me, and so is everyone and everything else. If I can't see it, simply accept I can't see it that way yet, and ask within for help to begin to see it properly, to begin to see it truly. And I guarantee you that the world in its fabrication will begin to change, because simply the way that you're choosing to see things, or the way that you're choosing to behold things in your own internal frame of reference, will be changing as well. Right? What changes in here changes out there. The only difference is that the change in here can be immediate, generally immediate. There may be a little orchestration of things before things can really drop in. It's like the now, the leaf. Did you hear me when I said that, or it's like you're still trying to work it out? But generally the change in here can be immediate, and But that doesn't mean that out there is going to be immediate, because everything out there is on a cycle, and you kind of have to wait for it to come around all the way around again, and then you'll be like, oh, there's that thing again. Wow, it's not triggering me. It's not upsetting me. It's not pushing my buttons and all of that thing. Or perhaps you're seeing that it is still pushing your buttons, and then you can recognize simply that the prayer of your heart for the healing of your mind that believes in separation from source, which is what this human experience is, wasn't really integrity filled. Didn't really have, it was just lip service perhaps. And in my early days, I had many prayers that were just lip service, and I would get up from my prayers and think, I don't know, I don't think I really meant that. You back down again and be like, Father, help. I can't even pray properly. I don't even feel it in my heart when I'm praying. I need a miracle for even praying. But eventually, it's like if you're climbing a mountain. Eventually, you put your hand there, it doesn't work. You put your hand there, maybe that's a better grip or something, and you'll work it out. Eventually, you'll get to the top. You just keep going. And that's the whole bottom line with anything, with all of this spirituality and all of these teachings. Doesn't matter what you're using. Just keep going. If you're on the road to Jerusalem, you'll get to Jerusalem. It doesn't matter how many times you have to stop and do things and whatever and everything, like check the compass or whatever. You'll eventually get there, because that's your goal and that's your intention and that's what it is that you want, right? When you're saying that the peace of God is all that I want, that is available now. Remember turning it on the thing? G'day. That is available now, but in general, the density, that's a nice way to say stupidity, the density of the human association is so heavy and inert in the falsity of its belief of self-identity being the body, that it takes a moment to have that all be unraveled and go through that undoing process. And when I say it takes a moment, that takes whatever it takes. It's like, let those who have ears to listen hear what I'm saying. I think I'd have to ask my friend Tina, who's my biblical advisor. Let those who have ears listen. Anyway, that's it. Enjoy your journey. Don't be afraid to go into the fearful places. That's what it's all about. Find your fear. Get out of your comfort zones. Comfort zone is death. Get out of your comfort zone. Find yourself out of the arena of familiar surroundings that you control, that you understand, that you know what's going to happen, that you have expectations of being all the same. Get out of those places. Allow the world to push you around a bit. Allow things to be difficult. Allow things to be awkward and confronting. How else are you going to practice being miracle-minded? How else are you going to understand the nature of the shift in your consciousness if you can't see that once this situation pushed you in this way and now... Okay, well, that's it. Remember, we're learning to be miracle-minded. We're learning to become completely dependent on God, not dependent on our own sense of worthiness, trust and skills and all of these things that we've accumulated on our spiritual journey or other journey to get us through our blocks, to get us through our obstacles, and to purify our relationships with each other so that we can be of one kind, of one brotherhood, which is what brotherhood means, all of one kind. And so that we can have no fear and no lack of inner peace, all that sort of stuff. I love you. Be about your Father's business, and your Father's business is love.